On today's show, we're going to be talking about the effects that narcissistic teachers have on our education system. Now, duly note, there are some incredibly empathic teachers who truly care and truly make a difference. But on this show, we'll be focusing on the effects of narcissistic teachers and how they affect our education system for the worse, and possible solutions to this problem. But just how far and how deep does this problem really go? One only needs to look at the state of a student entering into our education system. What are they like? What is their physical health like? What is their mental health like? And what is their spiritual health like before they enter into the education system, and then look at them when they're leaving it? Whether it be from K to 12 or from college, university. Are people healthier before or after their time in the education system? I put a very strong emphasis on self-education to better oneself, or education in general. People should be bettering themselves constantly. But does education have to be extremely stressful? Let me propose this question to my audience. I want you to try to learn something. Maybe you're reading a book, maybe you're reading something online. Try to teach yourself something new in a very calm and relaxed state. Now try to teach yourself something again, but do it in a very stressful state. Try to learn something when you have a headache, or when you have a lot of adrenaline, or in a fearful state. In what state do you learn more? So when our education system constantly subjects students to unnecessary stress, is it to their benefit or to their detriment? And of course, one only needs to look at the scientific research on just how damaging high levels of stress can be for an individual, both for their physical health and their mental health. So why does education need to be so stressful? To what benefit is it to be under high levels of stress? Again, do the experiment. Teach yourself something when you're in a calm, peaceful state of mind. Then try it again when you're in a very stressful state. What state is better to learn in? So why does our education system, why do they subject their students to such high levels of stress constantly? This makes absolutely no sense. Now, on the topic of what really doesn't make sense is the cost of the education system. I can find no real logic or reason behind this. If you look at first world nations, from province to province, from state to state to city, the cost per student is astonishing. In the K to 12 system, on average, it's about $1,000 per student per month. Like, let that sink in. $1,000 per student. What are we getting out of our taxes? Well, teachers and buildings cost a lot of money. Okay. So in a small classroom, let's say there's 20 students. Often there's more, but for simplicity's sake, let's say there's 20 students. That's $20,000 per month. So if a teacher who has a lot of experience makes $80,000 a year, let's say, then technically, wouldn't 8 students cover the cost of the teacher? Okay, but how about the cost of the building? Well, let's take 2 students, so that's $2,000 per month. Look what you can rent. Look at the size of a house you can rent for $2,000. Or look at a mortgage you can get for $2,000. So 8 students could cover the cost of a teacher. 2 students should more than be able to cover the cost of a classroom. And honestly, look at our schools. Look at the decor. Look at the construction. You could do a lot more for the money they're spending. Or here's another question. Look what $10,000 can rent in a commercial zone. Look at commercial buildings that are up for rent. $10,000. Look how big and modern and nice those buildings are. Where does the tax dollars go? And I've heard stories recently, even students, they have to rent their own textbooks. Wait a minute. Go online and go on Amazon and look at textbooks you can buy online. They're not that expensive. Then we go into college, university, and those textbooks are incredibly expensive. Do they really need to be that expensive? I mean, printing books, books aren't hugely expensive. So, where does the money go? How much money goes into bureaucracy or upper management? How much money gets sent there? Are we really getting the value for the money? Now ask yourself this other question. Look how much tutors charge. You want to learn a subject, and if you don't think you can teach it yourself, look at what a tutor charges per hour. So why be stuck in a classroom with 20 or 30 other people? What if the government was to make a voucher card? They would receive this card in the mail, and they'd be allotted some money to hire tutors. And this would give them the choice where their tax dollars went. And with this card, parents could hire tutors instead of sending their kids to the school system. Would that be more efficient? And needless to say, safer. With so many people being sent to a single building, there's bound to be problems. There's bound to be crime. So why are we deluding ourselves that everything's going to be fine? Just look at the history in the past 30, 40, 50 years, or since the Industrial Revolution, when the Prussian education system got started. It's been largely a disaster. Look at college nowadays. I look at the trades. So much of the work that's done in the trades is so poorly done, it has to be torn out and redone. I have talked to people who have built homes, and they tell me the same story. A lot of these trades guys, yes, they have their ticket. Yes, they have their credentials, but you have to redo work constantly. So look at our college system. Look at what they're able to turn out. It is found wanting. I do believe in standards and the ability to judge if someone is competent in a skill or not. But I really have to question the grade system. How accurate is it really? And what does it really show? And is it beneficial? But I have to wonder if this need for grading and the approval and the opinion of others, is this truly to the student's advantage? To a point, we probably need some of it. But if done to the extreme, can it be harmful? And can it create other esteem? What do I mean by that? Self-esteem is when you know your own personal value. You can judge accurately what you are worth as an individual. Other esteem is when a person needs to look for approval from other people. So I have to question, in our education system, even in the arts, which is very subjective, year after year, a student is told to seek the approval of others. Does this not create other esteem? And if the student then enters into the workforce, it's been so ingrained that you need the approval of others. Does this not make that individual vulnerable for abuse? If someone is constantly seeking other esteem, you see how dangerous that can be. But if a person has self-esteem, has self-worth, that protects them. They cannot be manipulated. But on the other hand, if you're constantly seeking the validation of other people to find your worth, this is unstable ground. But let's keep on asking more questions. Let's really compare the education system to the workforce. Can you use the same standards? No, you can't. Let's talk about bullies. Yes, there's bullies in the workforce as well. But the ongoing toleration, look how many years and how many generation after generation in the school system. Look at the bullies. It's the same story year after year after year. Wouldn't this behavior, if done to the same level, would this not get a bunch of people fired in the workforce? But yet, it's an ongoing story in the education system. So again, let's use measure for measure. Same standards in the education system and the same standards in the workforce. Do they measure up? Can the same standards apply? So to finish off this video, I'm just going to ask my viewers, look at the state of a student before they're going into the education system and the way they look leaving the education system after many years of being educated. Are they better off overall? Let me make another example. And let me pose yet another question. Can the state be relied to raise children? We as a society pay so much money into our education system, and our youth are sent there for so many years. Are there not better options? Take orphanages, for example. They are state-run. How many people who were raised in orphanages end up in the jail system or the prison system? By all measurements, I think we can say this is a catastrophic failure. We know the nuclear family, or the basic family unit, is the best way to raise a family. It's been proven time and time again. Civilizations who have attacked the family unit or try to get the state to take it over, look how often they have failed. Now, instead of sending so much money to these wasteful government systems, the education system really does stand out. And if we paid less tax and put more authority and power into the individual to make their own decisions, the very fact we'd be paying less taxes, women would have the possibility of staying home and raising their children. As we know, the nuclear family unit is the best way to raise children. The state can still help with education, but if we were to take away all this power and money we send to these organizations, would this not be a better system? And a better question that should be asked: why doesn't the education system, when they're hiring teachers, how come they don't make mandatory narcissistic psychological tests to weed out these very destructive individuals? We know narcissists, whether it be in the education system or in business or any other government or social institution, narcissists wreak havoc in whatever organization they're a part of. Now, I think most of us, thinking back to our education, probably had more than a few narcissists as teachers. Why doesn't the education system go out of its way to filter out these individuals before they hire them, before they cause the chaos? But I know the odds of this ever happening are null. But we should not despair. There are other education options: home correspondence, homeschooling, online college courses. There are other ways we can continue our education without being so dependent on the system. But we can also teach each other what we know. We can educate others freely. It may not be credited, but at least we're out of the system, building each other up. Preserving civilization and all that our forefathers have worked and built and strived for.